Hello, everyone. Welcome to 4Checks Cast. We are your 4Checks, here to give you everything going on in the world of Universus. And there's not been a lot. I, I wanted to be like, hey, as always, there's big stuff, but we have been kind of in a dearth of information. So we decided to take this moment this week, and instead of looking forwards to stuff coming out, we're going to mainly look backwards because we have had nearly the entire 2025 OP season. We still have two regionals, technically the season 4 LCSs, but those are really next OP cycle. And we have worlds.
Right.
So we wanted to kind of look at what has been done this year, see if it was an improvement, see what we might want as players from 2026's OP. So let's go ahead and start broad strokes. I kind of want to say before we get into like specific talking about ideas, what were you expecting from this year's OP cycle when you like from the onset?
I think I was. Go ahead.
I mean, they announced the plan. I think it's played out largely as we imagined. You know, I maybe because of how much they talked up like the prize wall and things like that, I thought there might be a little bit more going on in terms of. I thought we have like some like voice actor signings or things like that. Some of the stuff they've done at some nationals and worlds, at some of the regionals, just with the way they've talked up trying to make them spicier or whatever. But in terms of the structure and the points and the sizes of the events and whatever, I think it's been largely as it seemed like it was going to be when it was laid out.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have kind of a system that we had a local level with a couple different event types and a couple different kind of carrots to get people showing up to locals. And then we would have the regionals that would be like these bigger events, obviously with this gradated structure of prizes, lots of points on the line to go to worlds, and this kind of points race that was going to be somewhat inclusive. You know, that we'd have a threshold that was achievable, I think, intended to be achievable for a lot of folks, and then a much higher sort of like real grinder competitive level for the people who are going to be going to like every regional, and then would have a points race to try to be the top points finishers or whatever. And certainly the shape of that has delivered.
Sure. Will, did you have any thoughts when you were kind of going in?
I was expecting it to be better than last year, which they did accomplish.
Yeah.
I do think at a certain point, and this is the whole situation of this year is different in the sense that we don't have a nationals this year. Nationals is effectively day one of worlds, but it is a higher cap to get into than it was to get into nationals last year. So like for me personally, I think the get access to the day one while also getting rid of nationals, I think that failed to deliver properly. But I think the rest is pretty much on par with what I expected. Again, like Tim said, the prize wall was talked up to be a little bit more interesting and exciting, and it has not really delivered as such.
Yeah, it's getting there.
It is. There are improvements.
Yeah.
Overall pricing, I think, could be a little bit better, but I mean that's fine.
Yeah. Before we kind of hop into like talking about a broad stroke, I kind of want to take it kind of bit by bit throughout the year. You guys went to Denver, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because like I think of like there were 4 kind of big regionals that have determined, maybe 5 if you count Toronto, how Americans have seen this year. And Denver was kind of the first one. The main thing I heard was there was a lot of pricing concern at Denver. You know, they didn't have as many of the promos that you got for Top Cut. Like the prize wall promos were harder to get through Top Cut and things like that. And they've kind of worked on it since then. So let's focus first on the pricing. Where do you think pricing is right now versus where you wanted it to be?
I'll say that at Denver, and I was like vocal about this, I was happier getting 17th place than I was finishing 5th in Swiss in St. Louis the previous year.
Okay.
by like a wide margin. I thought the top 32 Hunters allies, I was pumped to get those, and there were a lot of them in the room, so I could finish a set. I was thrilled.
Yeah. I think I would say throughout the year, the main event pricing has been greatly varied. Not because the structure of it has changed from event to event, it largely hasn't, but because the promos that they're giving out, like how they've looked, what kinds of cards they were, how excited people were to get those cards has varied dramatically.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy. Like they came out swinging with Hunter's Ally. I think that is maybe still the coolest art-wise promo we've had. And it's like at the time it was a semi-viable. Now it's a much, much more viable with the elusive backups UR that you could get. So like that is a card that has retained its value and looks fantastic. I think even like I know Will has mentioned this before, I believe, and I apologize if I'm wrong. The like piss yellow gold, like of the first place ones, I've never really liked the look of, and the silver ones I'm like, especially versus the full color ones, which look amazing.
I haven't called them that specifically, but I like that because it compares them to the what Magic players affectionately call the alt art foils from Aether Drift as piss foils. They're supposed to be gold foils, but the shade of gold they chose is not good, and they just look like they're piss colored.
Yeah,
and I think these are a little bit better than that, but I still don't think the gold, silver, bronze thing that they did is a neat idea. I don't think it delivered.
I agree. I just agree. I think the problem is it's not the gold, silver, bronze part. It's that they gave exclusive full art, full color ones of these alt arts for like top 60, top 32. And in fairness, the first and second place players also usually get the lower ranking top cuts as well. I don't want to, forget that part. Yeah, but it kind of sucks. I usually look at those and I go, man, the top 16 one looks cooler to play than the first place one. Because like the top 16, top 32 ones of some of these have looked really good when it's actually like the full color, especially that Hunter's Ally.
Yeah, I remember being struck with my 100 lightning kicks in Louisville that the lower ranking promo was dramatically brighter, right? Like it reflected more light off of it because it wasn't like they basically had a foil treatment that was it kind of like a flat sheet of foil on the whole thing, and the high ranking one was sort of like just highlights of like her leg was lit up with the light, and then the rest of it was then you said there was less overall foil, so it was less overall like lumens coming off the card. And I remember that was kind of that struck me as really funny. Yeah, like kind of my theory on the top. I think it's a sweet idea, and it kind of maybe efficiently uses some of their artist resources or their kind of approvals resources. But I think the kind of the experiment of like the gradiated levels of the promos, I think has not turned out terribly well, especially as we've gone on and they've sort of there's been sort of like institutional decay of like the Hunter's Ally maybe was like really exciting. It was like their best foot forward, and then eventually we got to the Mondo Gecko that's kind of just the same card that we have in the packs.
It is worth noting the like Guilty Gear ones, like from season 4. They kind of have learned from the make everything gold. If I'm remembering correctly, it's mainly the text that is gold for the champion one, whereas like it is otherwise full color, full art. And I think the Guilty Gear ones look so cool.
They do look good.
Like I am really excited. I literally looked those and I was like, I wonder if I want to go to Buffalo to try for one of those, because I do really like the way they look.
Yeah, we'll have to see them foiled and see the foiling and see if you want ultimately you want your champion cards and especially your top 4 cards in the minimum to look like really, really, really premium. And while I appreciate that they didn't like color wash as they went on so that the top cards look worse than the top 32 cards, I also don't know if they're going to look particularly better than the top the top 16 or top 8 versions, for instance. Like a little bit with the gold plating, it's a step in a good direction probably. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm sure they'll keep iterating on this as they go.
I see Gavin's saying participation should be foil. Thoughts? I mean 100%, but I understand. Like I don't know how much more expensive it is to print things in foil. on paper, I don't think we print enough in foil. Like I think the champ cards should be foil, for example. And I think like it would be really cool if the participations were in foil, but it may be enough more expensive to get a foil printer printing than a non-foil printer that there may just be financial reasons why they're not doing it. I don't know enough of the economics.
Yeah, even kind of like it's sort of a, I think of, part of the, not even economics, but just like the logistics of, if you want to make sure that you overprint your participation cards so that there are certainly enough for everyone who shows up and enough to have on the prize wall, enough that everyone can go home with 4. Like it's just logistically going to be hard to do that the more deluxe and premium you make them. And also you want to kind of reserve some of the bling for the higher levels of it, right? Like imagine if all of the pushing the limits were foil and then they sold and then not everyone in the room got one, right? We had the military airship situation with push the limit.
Yeah, and it's an economics thing. I'm sure I don't want to get into a huge protracted rant about it, but I went to a Grand Archive regional this past weekend, right? Their equivalent, they call them Ascents. And like Mitch and Wub and Barlow were there too. So I got to hang out with them a little bit. And there are different ways to approach OP. And I don't necessarily know if what Weebs of the Shore, the company that runs Grand Archive, is doing is better per se. It is, for instance, not as like local game store friendly, but they try to make money off of their organized plays events, and UVS Games very expressly does not.
Yeah.
Right. They are strictly losing money on these, and hopefully the TOs are making some money. But because of that approach, every extra thing that they do, like foiling participation promos, is just a straight negative on the bottom line.
Absolutely. No, I 100% like. We have to be realistic with what we want, and like on paper, like everything being foil is sick, and having always the best promos would be sick. There is if every level gave you a new custom art, that would be amazing. Like I understand all that.
Yeah, I think that there is, like, it's one thing to foil your participation promos, and like sure that's nicer than not. It's another thing to have, 3 different pieces of art instead of 2 or something like that. Right? Right. Much more of a substantial difference to people, I think.
I will say one thing that I was really impressed with looking at the stuff you posted, Tim, from the Ascent, was that the promos had like just stamps on them of just like the Niagara 2025 promo.
They're all event specific. They all look better than Chrome's, right? Weebs is very, very, very good at printing and printing really nice treatments. I think they have, if they don't own their printers, they have some kind of exclusivity printing process. Like they just print their prize wall tickets on cardstock because they can. They just print cards. They don't care. They do it so easily.
Right.
I do want to say, like, when it came to promos, I am so glad we are away from Attack on Titan. Not because I don't like the IP. I did not like a lot of the prize wall art and the top cut art for the AOT cards. I think, like, for example, Dramatic Rescues, like alt art, that was like the top 32 art, to me, strictly looks worse than the UR from the actual set. Like the UR from the actual set very clearly communicates, I don't know the girl's name, but the young girl, I think Gabby, saving people. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And then like the one that's the top 32 is like a zoom in on John's face, like dragging somebody. And it's all in this puke green, at least for the top 32 one. And I'm just like, man, I don't like this. And I've had that issue with a lot of the arts.
Yeah, some of the arts from AOT got better as time went on, but a lot of them are just like not great.
And you compare them to like the TMNT ones. I think most of the TMNT ones look really good. I know some may not be super on for the chibi art style that some of them use, but like for TMNT, it works for me. And I love a lot of the TMNT prize wall cards. I think the equipment heist, for example, look fantastic.
I think the locals cards for TMNT look really, really good.
Yeah.
I think I would have enjoyed getting a few more pieces of that art style for your high level organized play. I think one cynical gripe that I might make of UVS Games is that they are very happy to print all sorts of stuff for conventions and these local prize packs and stuff, but for their regionals, they're much more like, oh, let's go find some existing. I mean, maybe these locals promos were existing art assets too, but they look commissioned, right? Whereas for the stuff that goes on the prize wall, it's kind of getting whatever's at the bottom of the barrel that they can dredge up.
Right.
Yeah. I don't
mean,
fully disagree.
It's a weird like allocation problem. Like it's just my immediate thought is like, I kind of agree with you on the dramatic rescue. I really like the set art, and the talk art is less. I like less than the set one. But like if they make 20 promos in the year, they get to allocate them in some way, somehow, somewhere at the end of the day, and they have to allocate the arts to the normal set in somehow, some way, whatever. I think like that we cherry pick like the worst ones. Like we can find spots where the worst, like the cards of the set look worse than the ones in the prize wall or whatever. I don't know. I think the like military airship, I think is like the alt art of that one is awesome. I love that panel.
Sure.
And I love the United Front promos I got in Toronto. That I wasn't even aware were there consciously beforehand.
Yeah. The ones that the cover art ones looked pretty good. I think they're always going to have this problem with IPs, where when you're a game with as many IPs as they're intending to have, everything you release, 80% of your player base is not going to care about it.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully it's something that looks independently cool. Like I think people who don't know anything about Guilty Gear, which largely includes myself, will be able to look at some Guilty Gear promos and be like, oh wow, that's a really nice looking card. But it's not going to be that way for every IP. Like I think Tekken's probably going to have this problem. Like most Tekken characters just look like dudes, right? So
I will say, you mentioned the whole kind of prioritizing the locals and not the top cut. I do think instead of the 4, like my dream for pricing, instead of the 4 assets being like Raphael Sai and all those getting the old school comic art like they had for the local championships, I would have so much more preferred it if you had taken those 4 cards, because it's just the characters, done top 8 is a Donatello with that art, top 4 is a Michelangelo with that art, second is a Raph with that art, and first is a Leonardo with that art. And like those are your 4 ones instead of doing the assets. Because if you, like I've said for a long time, if you start printing character alt arts as top cut pricing, I'm going to be so immediately in.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there are a lot of good ideas. Some of them will even be better than what we get. Like in the total domain of what is possible, what could be accomplished, especially kind of like possible from the armchair perspective. And I guess I don't really know if I had a real punchline that I was building.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate them wanting to do as much as they can for the locals promos and stuff. I'm grumpier about PAX Unplugged getting 3 distinct Guilty Gear promos and Buffalo getting nothing.
Sure. No, I
do we know what those PAX ones are yet, by the way?
No, we have no idea.
No, we just know they're Guilty Gear promos.
We just know they exist, and one of them you can only get if you 3-0 a pre-release event at PAX Unplugged.
And
I assume by some future means, but who knows?
Yeah. And as far as I know, the only new cards that are going to be on the prize wall, I'm looking at it right now, for Buffalo are, I assume, the participation promo, obviously. That's been the case every single time. And 2 oversized cards. There are no Guilty Gear promos on the prize wall.
Yeah,
granted, like I don't know how. I think the Atlanta ultimately had these deck boxes on the prize wall, but I don't think they were advertised or people really knew about it until like they were there at the prize wall station.
Sure.
I think those are a very nice addition to the prize wall. I like that we have a lot of variety in our prize wall. Again, comparing to the Ascent, one of the things that surprised me was that you basically, they had 6 different event exclusive playmats that were all stitched and very nice, mind you. But if you weren't into playmats, you could basically just get booster packs.
Yeah.
And here we've got deck boxes, we've got the promos, we've got the double size promos, we got pins, we have mats. Now, yeah, we would like it if the mats were cooler than just symbol mats or whatever, but there's a pretty nice mix on the UVS prize walls.
Sure.
And
I've been thinking, like, one of my big theses also is, like, if we're saying, like, looking back at the year, like, how did our prize wall, how did we do at the prize wall? Like, every event was, like, I feel like almost characterized by how much people were grinding side events to get prize wall promo tickets, to get the promos, because the promos were so sick.
Sure.
And, like, the biggest problem, like, the most dramatic problems weren't that no one cared about the prize wall. It's that they sold out of military airships, and everyone is really unhappy that they can't get what they want to get off the prize wall because the prize wall demand was too high. And just like if we're trying to take a balanced look at what's happened this year, like I think that must be said. Like, hey, actually, we did too good, right? Kind of the problem.
Yeah,
that
right there.
I think I want to push back on what you said just a little bit. I don't think it's that demand is too high. It's demand is too centralized. It's that there is one or two promos on the prize wall, and this really was only it was an issue for Airship, and then kind of the Marley's Warriors, which we don't know what really happened with those because there were so few of those. But it was really an Airship problem.
It did also happen with Equipment Heist.
It did happen with Equipment Heist. We didn't notice as much because it was in Toronto as well, but that event was small enough. It accommodated for everyone.
But like for example, Atlanta did limit Equipment Heist one per person, and they split them up for 2 days, and they sold out both days. Like
the problem is
people got them. I didn't get any.
You know, they're sometimes it's like the only UR or the other URs are like not very good that they have on the prize wall, and then they have this like meta relevant one, and it's conflicted because on one hand you want to be like, oh, it's cool that we're printing a clearly meta relevant UR that's more accessible for people. Airship is probably a cheaper card now because of the 2 tournaments it was available at than it would have been if it was just you had to buy it fresh. On the other hand, what happens is that becomes the one altered people want above any other altered because the other ones may go for $2 or $3 and this one's going to go for $15 or $20. You're probably going to want the one that goes for $15 or $20. And so it's not that demand is high broad strokes, it's that everyone's demand is to the same card. And I think that's a problem.
If the question is, did they do it perfectly? The answer is no, right? Like that's categorically always going to be the case. Yeah. That's just the nature of reality.
But they were able to produce a number of cards that people wanted. It just wasn't 100% hits across the board, right? All the Critical Role alternatives are great, right? So
Critical Role, I think, did it the best, where it's like these are solid cards. Like Radiant Visage is a good card. I don't think Trickster has found a deck yet. What Jaunty Trickster has found a deck yet, but it probably will. I think the like foundations with amazing art is some of my favorite ideas for them. Or like the rares like Throat Slitter, like some are just pointing that one out. Throat Slitter is like a rare or uncommon that you can see playing in decks, and then we just gave them gorgeous looking art to match. And I think
should do a promos tier list.
Oh my god,
that's probably pretty fair.
If we could find art for all of the promos, I would be down for a promo tier list video.
Yeah, so it's kind of just knowing it, they could optimize a little bit, including potentially if maybe instead of trying to have 4 promos in a season and then having 1 promo the next season and having 3 and then having 0 or whatever, just having like 2 per season and making sure that that they're good ones, and maybe even you could consider price depending on how you feel about your prize wall economy. You could consider pricing them up. You could consider incentivizing more sealed play side events, except that the TO is making that money and not UVS Games. So it's not UVS Games doesn't really have a reason to push limited per se as much, but there's a lot of fiddling you can do to try to math it out. But the first step is just, consistently having promos to begin with.
And that kind of gives us a nice transition to the next kind of point with games, with these tournaments. Do you think 1, side events are important? And 2, do you think side events are meeting the standard you want them to meet in terms of what we're doing and how many we're doing of them?
First of all, yes, they're important.
Always.
I figured that.
I just want to get that's that like basically how the TO makes money. Like,
well, I mean, I strictly am talking for the players. Like, it's important for the player experience to have these. I understand the profitable angle.
I mean, yes, on both ends. Like, it gives players something to do when they scrub out. Like,
yeah, I think we've gotten into a relatively, over the course of the year, we've gotten to a relatively consistent standard of having this like Sunday teams event that's pretty popular. And, somewhere in there, they try to fit a retro or they've tried to do spotlight events. They're mostly not really getting attendance, but I appreciate the effort. They usually try to fit in a retro event somewhere. I think a lot of those end up being Fridays now, but you could run like a retro event alongside the teams event if you want to on Sunday. Make sure people have 2 options or whatever.
That's the day I would want to do it because I get there on Friday, so I can never play retro because I always
Yeah.
start at like noon.
Yeah, I think it's good. I obviously personally wish there was more limited, but it's not that popular, so it is what it is.
I'm a psychopath. My favorite side event experience was what's it called? Dragon's Horde. That's
Yeah.
like by a mile been my favorite like limited experience. Probably my favorite side event experience of anything was just doing Dragon's Horde.
Dragon's Horde / Chaos Draft is just straight up fun in general.
I think for the most part I've liked where side events have been. I'm gonna put one asterisk. Boss battles should be much more limited, and they've kind of moved back from it, from my understanding, in how they give out tickets. Because I think it should feel valuable to get tickets from events, but if you're actually playing for tickets, boss battles have been by a mile consistently the best way to get tickets. And I'm not just talking the Karasu cheese. There's like a million different cheese strategies you can use if you're going.
Boss battles are like a different kind of thing than all of the other events. And I don't think that anyone at the OP team was like conceptualizing their offerings as something that needed to be red teamed to like make sure that they were like the similar like tickets per minute spread, right?
Yeah.
In my head, like they should just like be able to sell prize ball tickets directly to people who want to buy them if they really want to do that. Like we shouldn't have this like kayfabe of like, oh, you got to enter tournaments and then you got to be a good citizen of the tournament that you entered into the side event with to, transfer like here are these prize ball promos that should sell for $30, but you're not allowed to buy them for $30. So you have to enter a tournament and then get a surplus out. Like it's just goofy. Like we shouldn't bother with that.
Yeah, I think the only like on-demand pods you should probably be doing are for limited or whatever, where provided you have, this takes some judging energy, but provided you have someone to like, oversee the little 8-person pod and just, make sure they get through their rounds on time and they're actually playing the game and things like that.
Right.
You can do best of ones or whatever. You're still gonna take you still have to like want to do the things. It's gonna take 2 hours no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I think that especially on Sunday, right? If the TOs supply enough staff for day one, then day two there's a similar number of people in the room, and a lot of people are in top cuts. I think like 8-man on demand stuff is really good. Like it makes a lot of sense. It lines up well. It gives people something to do. It lets you support, like say, hey, show up with your spotlight deck and find 7 other people with spotlight decks, and you can all enjoy that format together. That's a valuable thing to contribute to the community. Like that's a valuable like service offer to the community to let people play like that.
Yeah,
to organize the games for them.
Yeah, I went to this event in Toronto with the express purpose of bombing out in the main event. I played a modified challenger deck effectively. I wasn't doing anything. But I'm like, after this ends, I'm going to, these vaunted Grand Archive has the best organized play events that people talk about all the time in these Discords. Well, that means I should be able to just go draft the rest of the time, right? I'm just going to go slam draft pods. And if it's fun at all, I'm just going to keep doing it. And that's what I did, right? I drafted twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday and just kind of hung out and did that and collected my prize wall tickets. And then they ran out of their main set of booster packs. I couldn't get what I wanted. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but there were some good things about it.
Yeah, 100%. I overall I've liked where side events are, and I do like the nature side events. I think if I was picking one thing that I would like as an addition to side events, I would be interested in seeing the experimentation of some kind of prizing that is unique to participating in a side event beyond the prize wall. And what I mean by that, I think like one Yu-Gi-Oh that I know does fantastic that I would love to see brought into Universus. I think it fits our style well. Do you guys know about the win a giant card in like Yu-Gi-Oh? I don't know if other games do it, but I know Yu-Gi-Oh does.
Yeah, that was the prize in Grand Archive's main side event is they don't do teams. So they had I scrubbed out of day one was the name of the side event. Because it's a 2-day standard, and the victory for that was a monumentally large foil card of one of their waifu champions.
Yeah, so I think like doing more win a giant cards would be a really cool thing. Like I think giant cards are so perfect for our game. Giant cards of characters, when they did that for like the Jetburn characters at Nationals, was so amazing. The lottery they did. I think that needs to be a thing in our game more normally. at some of these things. And it could even be like some could be at regionals. You could do it at like imagine if Gen Con. Yeah, we don't want to do cons for real pricing anymore. I get that. Imagine if Gen Con was like, hey, you compete in Gen Con, you could get a giant card of Leonardo if you win the pre-release. That would be sick. They did that for the Plus Ultra giant card back when My Hero was first announced, and that was incredibly cool. I would love to see
I definitely remember, a couple of years ago at Nationals, like they had all the giant cards, and I think certainly having like big Sun promos like that is dope as hell. I think that's a great idea. And to have like a measure of, not just sort of eight man flights or however many people show up, like they actually have a proper like, hey, this is a second main event or like day 2 main event that isn't the main event, but is something for people to show up to be excited about and compete for. I think it's still really good.
Basically, what I'm saying is, Universus, if you're watching this, giant cards at Worlds. I want giant cards at Worlds.
And I feel like in the minority because I hate giant cards.
What?
I like the double size cards. I like them because you can actually still use them. The giant cards you can't use, and they're big. They're a pain in the ass to take home. I don't like them. I'm not gonna shit on people who do like them for what it's worth, but it's not a thing for me. I like the double size a lot.
I'm broadly indifferent to them. I'm broadly indifferent to uncut sheets. I think there's a lot of like paraphernalia that people get really hot for that is just not kind of my scene. But I think it is cool to have out there, and certainly like if it's a giant card and it's a card people are really hot, like there's probably someone who will buy it from you if you win it and can't get it over or whatever. Right?
Look, all I'm saying is if there existed a giant card of Smiling, it would be on my wall there right now.
Sure, and you are welcome to have that opinion.
Yeah,
like you are welcome to enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a giant card I would want unless like a favorite of IP of mine came along or something like that, or maybe if at some point I ever like win a major again, then the character that I won with, if I like, I'd probably be down for a giant Pharaoh Man. I think that'd be cool.
Sure. You tell me you don't want a giant card? Like you don't want a giant Tim Keefe 2 giant card?
No, that'd be weird.
That's
just be weird.
That's weird. But like I said, I like the double size cards a lot. I thought it was really cool that Tim was able to play the double size Ryu at the regional.
Yes,
like I thought that was neat. My only problem with the double size cards is that we just get random ass characters. Like for Guilty Gear,
the worst 2 characters in Guilty Gear.
Right. Like we're getting Happy Chaos, which I'm sure people will like to get.
Yes,
and
then Jet will like to get double size Chaos.
Like meanwhile, like there's not a Bridget one, and maybe we'll get it in the future. I just think that if we're gonna do double size cards, we should do double size versions of every character at that point in the set that they're for.
Oh yeah. I especially think with like a set the size of Guilty Gear, there's no reason you couldn't have done most, if not all, of the characters.
Sure.
And it is weird, the double-sized ones. It's not just that it's like the non-meta characters, which yes, it's like the 2 least playable characters, or at least Potemkin's probably the least playable. But it's also like 2 not popular ones for the franchise. Like it's not Soul or Kai or Bridget or May or Aino. The characters that I know have a lot more fan attention around them. It's Potemkin and Happy Chaos. And if you're not Jet, you're probably not that obsessed with Happy Chaos.
If completely ignoring the Guilty Gear choices, the thing that pisses me off is that we have double size of 2 of the turtles. Not even 4. Like, what was it? I think it's like Leo and Mikey, which I guess that makes sense, but like it doesn't make any sense to not have the other 2 available if you're going to do double size turtles.
So to kind of keep us on track to make sure we're hitting all the things, because I think we've kind of touched on pricing, we've touched on side events. Here is my question for tournaments themselves. If regional tournaments continue to operate at the level they are operating now, would you grow frustrated with them, or are you content with where it is? Do we just need to stay the course, or do we need improvements?
If every regional was run as good as Atlanta, I would be happy.
Sure.
I don't know how much of that was round 3 versus Levi versus Tam, but having the round timers, I mean, obviously we'd like rooms to be air conditioned. That was out of their control. They did, but when there was a problem, they put through an awful lot of effort to fix it as best as they could.
That's a good adaptation.
Yeah, they had the stream viewing was projected onto a screen and people could watch what was going on. They had, again, ample judges. They had the team side event that ran pretty well. It was at a decent location where you could walk to various food sources. Like I don't have any UVS or organized play team complaints about Atlanta. Give or take, we can always like micro this or that could be better about the prize wall, but like
Right.
I think if every OP event was like that or better, I'd be quite happy.
Sure. I can agree with that.
I think I largely agree with you there. There are changes I would like, but they are pretty niche right now. It's like, man, it would be cool to get like I saw someone mention in the chat, heroic would be a 6-side event to get. Like I think retro is great for old heads, and I know there are some new heads that like retro. I think retro is a really hard format to approach for most players. I think there are a lot of players though who would approach heroic a lot more easily. I think cards are just more available for heroic to begin with, for one. So like I think a heroic format would be really cool. So I could be nitpicky on stuff like that. Overall, I would be fine. I would want pricing to be a little bit better. Again, I want character promos.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I didn't think about while I was like main event pricing is still a work in progress. But
yeah. But I think if you gave me like character promos as main event top cut pricing, you would solve most of my issues with main event pricing. I think those would be immediately, I'd be like, cool, I'm down. Especially if you made them the good characters.
Yeah, like I think, I mean, big picture, like if it was exactly the same this year as it was next year as it is this year, well, I hope they don't shoot themselves in the foot the way they've shot themselves in the foot. I hope they like keep the things that they improved on over the course of the year.
Right.
And I hope they fix their logistics, like not doing another military air situation where there's this promo that sells out. And that's kind of like if they don't make any of the same mistakes as this year, I think that's a if they the floor next year of like the worst regional is as good as like having fixed all the mistakes from this year. It's like the best like just mundane stuff from this year. Then I'd be thrilled with that. Like factoring in like not putting Denver a week after Worlds or whatever,
Right.
that no one gets to show up to it, and not putting things in weird cities no one wants to go to, versus having events that actually will get 100 people to show up because it's at a central enough location. Like that kind of stuff is like, that'd be great.
Yeah, Weebs gave people prize wall tickets if you brought a friend to come demo the game at the event. And I was just like, wow, we can't do that in UVS because we never have events where people play the game and have friends they might bring that could drive to this thing.
I 100% agree with that. I think like if I were to name my issues with regionals, besides main event pricing, the vast majority of it is everything around the regional. It's location. It's the amount of time in advance we've been getting these locations. In theory, we were supposed to get everything like by the end of this month. We were supposed to hear like
still got one more day.
We got one more day.
They love announcing stuff on Fridays and then going.
We better hear tomorrow where all the OP stuff is going. All the tournaments are going to be for next year.
Isn't tomorrow a Riftbound release? We'll see if we get anything tomorrow.
Yeah, they're in full on firefighting probably for a little while.
Yeah. So like, honestly, I'm mostly snarking. If we get it in the next couple of, if we get it by the end of or like beginning of December, I'll be happy because I won't have to make decisions till March. So like, or tournaments won't begin till March. So like, I'm fine as long as we get it by the end of the year. In that regard, the company's not releasing a thing they said they would. I am shocked. Yeah. So the things around regionals, I think, are where I want to see improvement. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up before we kind of move away and talk about Worlds, because I think OP is more than just regionals. Do you guys think they need to be doing more than what they've done at events like Gen Con, PAX, stuff like that? Because I know that's been kind of a talked about thing.
I mean, I think it's appropriate that they are not necessarily running competitive events at Gen Con.
Sure.
I think it's cool that they're running like Sealed, they're running learn to play level stuff and like relatively non-competitive constructed type stuff. I kind of wonder, I feel like I have no sense that they've ever like run a lot of Challenger Series format. Like I know they've like they've said, hey, here's a way to play the game. It's just play Challenger decks against each other. and I'm interested if that's any good or not. Even if that makes for good games or interesting, whatever. And I've been meaning to explore that at some point. Explore that question for myself and explore like what's the metagame look like if you can just have a thing that says, hey, anyone show up with any challenger deck you like what's good, what's effective anyway. I mean, I think that like the reason they don't run, they've run regionals at Gen Con before, and they kind of got the feedback that, hey, people don't want to spend $1,000 to go to your regional. Put it somewhere where it doesn't cost $1,000 to Gen Con. It costs $1,000 to go to. Like, okay, yeah, that's reason. It's a reasonable trade-off to make that we have a smaller number of people at the con and have a event just for Universus at their own regionals. I think that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of down for some like smaller con type stuff that they make some. Maybe level up's too big for this right now, but you think like I don't know the sizes of cons, but like Galaxy Con, for instance, right? There's these like mid-sized conventions that don't cost an arm and a leg to go to necessarily. That aren't the only thing is like they don't necessarily want to set up a booth at those kinds of cons. So it's a little, it's not as much of a value to them as doing something at a con that they want to be at, but. But I just remember I enjoyed like walking around the vendor hall at level up in between rounds, basically. That's really all this is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I like level up a lot. Like that was a good event. I personally am in the market to go to go to things at Gen Con. I have the disposable income to tank that if I need to. But I think that's kind of been the rationale, in my sense.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm in the minority or not. I'm one of those players who actually likes when regionals are at cons because it gives I like having a choice if there's non-Universus things I want to do when I scrub out. It kind of helps me combine different vacation ideas beyond just the tournament play with my days off. And so that's nice. I understand why we don't do it at cons. I understand people's financial concerns. Hotels are more expensive during a con. You have to pay for the ticket for the con. I get all of that. So I don't necessarily have a problem that we don't. I would like more eventful stuff, not necessarily more competitive stuff. I think pre-release is great. Sure. I think you should do like the Plus Ultra. I kind of mentioned this earlier, the Giant Card Plus Ultra promo style things. If the winner of Gen Con got a Giant Leonardo, that would be sick. Stuff like that yes, it's something that anybody can come to, anybody can approach. You could never play Universus and sit down in Limited and have a good time. But there is something that kind of makes you want to sit down I might win this Leonardo card. I know that's what first really got me to play serious Universus the first time was in 2019 Gen Con. I do the demo for the game. I get my, promos and I'm told, hey, there's this pre-release that if you do the pre-release, you get an Alt-Art All Might, which was supposed to be exclusive there. And then if you do the All Might, or if you win that pre-release, you can go be one of the ones trying for the Giant card. And that was really cool. Have a good time. Hey, I have a great time playing Limited, man.
Yeah, but you've played Universus before. I'm just saying, it's there's a lot of skills you need to have to be able to play the game. And playing Limited with bad decks. I think I didn't really speak up about side events, and I played a Dragon Horde that I did not enjoy. I had a bad time playing Dragon Horde, and that's been a first. I played a lot of Dragon Hordes, a lot of weird improvised nonsense decks, but this was rough.
So I think it also depends on what type of Limited, because if you do the super sealed type limit or the super challenger type Limited that Rochester kind of did with Street Fighter, I think that's a lot more acceptable if you're going to have new players, if you're going to entice new players to play, then, hey, sit down, take 6 packs of this game you just learned and build a deck and play. I think it's definitely better to go, here's a pre-con, you can throw some cards in there if you want, or you can just play the pre-con. You don't have to worry about the deck building, just play the game and have fun. That's how you get new players to show up, play the game and have fun, and maybe one of them might win.
Hey, and I will say, for the last citation, in my Limited run, and I think Challenger is actually better for this, and I'll give you that. In my Limited run, I played against, actually, I think it was demo decks that we were doing, because I think it was the Bakugo and Deku, and you got one at random.
Yeah, if it's demo decks, that's a lot more acceptable, yeah.
Yeah. I played against, I believe it was Ashley Fullerton was the one who I played in one of the rounds, and she kicked my ass, and I had a great time anyways. I do think Challenger would be better for this to get new people really in. I think something like that just has more of a selling point, because the Gen Con pre-release felt kind of sloppy, in my opinion. The pre-release event. One,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to know how
this
much
year?
of that was because it was just a pre-release at Gen Con, how much of it was just like the general attitude and approach of like they did not care very much about these events that they were running.
no.
They, the booth was visually very cool, but I mean, they didn't bring enough. Like, that's a broader statement about this particular Gen Con deployment that I don't know is that they could have had a pre-release at Gen Con that was really trumped up and really organized and had, some of the 8 promos that they produced were cordoned off specifically for the previews or whatever. Like, it wasn't because it was just a pre-release at Gen Con. It was just a matter of, how much energy and effort they were putting into it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think my overarching idea is that like ultimately it comes down to like execution and logistics and boring and like the boring stuff that goes into making these things possible, and that hasn't always been kind of the strong suit necessarily of executing the highest quality on it every time, which is kind of I'm stammering over saying small indie game problems, but they're putting the ship together.
It can be easier said than done.
I think kind of the last thing I would want to say about Gen Con, because I do agree with that. I don't want the Dorian and Fern situation to happen again. I think the $150 promos that weren't legal for like 3 months, we heard nothing about it, and like then it immediately goes up for redemption for free, was a very annoying experience.
I was so surprised when you said at the top of the cast that we've had nothing going on after this week in Universus, honestly. When on Monday, everyone was melting down about the champ cards and burning Godzilla as like, what's going on with this?
Oh, I've just been focused on how the ban list, it feels like something needs we felt like in limbo waiting for this ban list.
Okay, I see.
That was kind of where my mind was at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in like competitive deck thinking limbo between that and Guilty Gear, but I think I've managed to wipe my mind of expectations for the ban list. It's going to show up, and there will be words on a webpage.
So you're not going to want a lightning round at the end of this where we all say what we want banned.
For the first time, I think Devil Jin is tier 0 and needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I've loosely thought through what I've thought through like what I would do, but I don't have like expectations that UVS game is going to match that, right?
I think the last thing that would be worth talking about before we kind of wrap things up, because I know I kind of need to be a shorter stream this week. Before we wrap things up, I want to talk about going forward to Worlds. So we looked at it before stream. From NA, about 170 people qualified for Worlds day 1. I don't have the numbers on hand for day 1 for Europe and OCE, and we don't know how many of those are even likely to show up. Day 2 for OCE and EU, who I would expect to show up, we have like 5 and 10, and we'll probably get more than that, but we don't know how many day 1s are actually going to show up. So it's very realistic. We'll have, if there's no other things besides Buffalo and Glasgow, that we'll have like a 200 or less person event. With all that being said, do you think the abandonment of nationals and making Worlds the big thing is bearing the fruit that we would want it to, with the attendance numbers it looks like it might have, with the necessary qualifications, all of that?
I mean, I think the story in my head, like, because I'm going to object to the question, I'm object to the framing.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not sure about.
The regionals this year were sweeter than nationals was last year. Sure. And we got more than 3 regionals this year, and there's still more on the calendar. And like the distribution has been kind of funky, but I think that distribution has worked for me personally. Mm-hmm. And I think that certainly like 200 people showing up to World sounds awesome. I think that's even I don't really know how to parse out what that really means because of the day 1, day 2 situation, in terms of like how many like last year we had X people show up in a top 32 bracket, and I hate top 32 brackets, and it worked out okay in the end. But if we had 200 people in a top 32 bracket, that'd be a crazy freaking thing, and it's gonna be different than that because the day two cut and all that. So I really don't know what to expect for the shape of that in terms of like the
Sure.
rounds and whatever. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily like consecutive Swiss or whatever. Lots of open questions there on the exact shape of things. But I think I think I don't know. It seems good to me.
I don't think, like, if you took away the points requirement, I don't know if that many more people show up anyway.
Sure.
Like, especially if you like go back into a time machine and you don't have people that are like building up because you get there's that little like incentive that you feel if you're like, oh wow, I qualified for Worlds, I better go. Right. If you minus out some people from losing that, and plus some people who, started playing halfway through the year or whatever, and now get to go, I'm sure there's more attendance. I don't know if there's a lot more attendance. And on the flip side, we had all these people going around to all these LCs. We have a store in our area that only entertains UVS because we show up once a season and give them money to play in pre-releases
Sure.
and LCs and things like that. And, so there's been a fair amount of upsides to that. And like, yeah, maybe you could fine tune the points a little bit differently. Maybe you say 3, N number of LCs per season can count or whatever. But like, I think attending a regional should be worth more in particular than 5 points. But
I could agree with that.
I'd agree.
I think overall, yeah, I mean, if you don't have a prize to offer for your nationals, which, they kind of didn't last year, if I recall, like it was just like, oh, there was more points or something like that, or like the top 8 auto qualified or whatever.
It was guaranteed
That was
Worlds.
it,
Yeah, it was just like extra qualification spots, which I guess it's just like a big LCQ. You could do that if you want, but
Sure.
if you're gonna have the 2-day Worlds thing, then that's a little bit weird unless it's a direct invite to day 2. It's just hard to, and you're trying to construct like all the effort they put into Worlds promos and things like that, and they had all these different chromes and treatments, and then they went hog wild on Worlds promos just out of nowhere, aside from like the weird participation out of the back room stuff that they found. And they don't want to have to do that twice back to, but yeah, like we're gonna do this once for nationals and then once for Worlds, and just somehow do it different X month. All right, what I'm just developing in my head, if they want to do a nationals, it should not be at the end of the year. A national should be like a mid-year major if they want to do something like that.
I could agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's. See, now you've given me expectations, Tim, because last year like those chromes were sick. Like the random backroom participation stuff was surprising and neat. It wasn't. I mean, I think I'd seen those cards before and mostly had like touched and owned a copy of all those cards before, so it was less sweet for me than it was for some other people, I guess, possibly. But then obviously like the chromes and the alternate treatments up the top 32 bracket were incredible. And now I have expectations that they're going to do in the same ballpark again this year, and I hadn't really thought that hard about what we'd see. But I think certainly like being able to focus in and lock in and really do something really great for the World Championships, I think is a good pattern. I think that's a good call that they should do it like that, and that they should have something that is really like putting their best foot forward and doing it, then locking in for this one event that is actually entirely under their control and not kind of soft contracted out. And we're gonna have some TOs that we're gonna pick up, and they're gonna find a venue and whatever, that whole process. So I think like having an event that really knocks it out of the park, I think is the most important thing, right? The kind of the way that there's a quirk of human psychology called the peak end rule, that we remember the best moment of the season and the most intense thing and the way it ends. And so the end of the year is we get to line both those up. We have the World Championships, the highest competition and also the highest payoff of cool stuff. I mean, I think that's all kind of well ordered.
My only thing about it is I just think the point system itself needs an overhaul. I don't have a distaste for making Worlds something that you have to earn, even if it's like not hard to earn it. I think the way that it currently works is incredibly unbalanced.
Yeah.
And it needs work, because like I have players who aren't terrible players who just aren't going to be able to go because we only have one local within 4 hours that anyone can even get to due to their job. And they couldn't go to all the regionals this year. So they're like, 20 points shy. And now they don't get to go unless they go to Buffalo. and the Buffalo event is unfortunately at also a really bad time, so they're not going to be able to go to that. So it feels really bad for people like that, who wanted to go and just couldn't because of stuff like that. Meanwhile, we have people who have access to 5 or 6 different shops, and they're grinding. They're in on day 2 already, and not really having to go to more than 1 or 2 regionals, and that feels really bad.
Yeah, I think the uneven playing field has been a weird trait of the system, and I don't know if they just don't care or if they think it's a feature or what.
Right.
But like that you're kind of running a foot race, and some people get to have 8 legs, and some people get to have 0 legs. It's like it's really weird.
Right. That's my biggest issue with it. Like, I think if they could find a way to fix that. See, my idea for it, and it may not be perfect for what it's worth. I'm not saying that my ideas are perfect. God knows. But my idea was like take the invite system from LCs from like 2 years ago and apply that to LCs, and then have points be regional based and make that your day 2, right? Like, you can't grind day 2 on locals. You have to go to bigger events. But if you go to locals, you can still just get the ability to go to worlds in the first place. You just have to, work harder in day 1 if you can't go to regionals. And I think that solves a lot of the problems personally. But
there's a quote that Tim, I think it was Tim that said this, that I always has stuck with me when it came to OP, which is that you can balance for skill, you can balance for money, you can balance for time, and you can do 2 of these 3 things. It's really hard to do all 3 things.
Sure.
Was that you, Tim, that said that, or something along those lines?
No.
No? Okay. No, I really liked it anyway, so I'm going to say, whoever came up with it, thank you for that.
Someone told you that.
Yeah,
someone told me that, and I really liked
the classic choose 2. Yeah.
Because like the OP 2 years ago, that was like everything was down to nationals performance. That was like 100% accounting for skill. Yes, there was variance as well because some people just have bad runs, but that is in theory the most skill balanced event. You do well in nationals, you make it, otherwise you're out. And like last year's felt very time based. Like doing well at regionals could get you there, but really you had to be doing a lot of LCSs. And you like most of the people in the top 20 points were doing a ton of local events. I think there were very, very few that got it from like purely regional performance.
Yeah, like I forgot that last year was just a spreadsheet race of there are X many spots on this. We will take the top X from the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The thresholds this year are such a night and day improvement.
I think the thresholds being static this year was the best choice. Like it really helped be like, look, if you can pace out your goal and you can figure out, can I do this with the regional math? Can I do this with the local math? What do I need to do? And it felt achievable for most people. I think, yes, if you have 1 locals in your area, it was harder because you might have to drive 4 hours to another one or whatever. But like you knew at the end of the day, it was not like it didn't have the rat race of where like I might drive 4 hours to this and get 10 points and it may not matter because I'm 21st, not 20th on the spreadsheet. Whereas here it is, hey, if I drove 4 hours because I knew with those 4 hours I was going to get 10 points from the 2 LCs I went to, and I'll guarantee it. And so that felt a lot more affordable to me.
Yeah, and I think kind of the synthesis of kind of where I think where you're coming from right now, and where I think Will has been talking about, is just that they need to adjust some of the systems to make it a little more, a little less, well, to maybe make regionals a little bit less a little lower variance in terms of achieving the thresholds, right? Where you show up, you get 5 points for participating. If you hit a 500, right, which is a respectable result, it's not necessary if it's a big enough tournament, which is another whole thing. That's not going to be top 64. That's not going to be top 32. That's not going to get any points above the 5, and so that's now not worth your time to have done that versus just like going to a local and getting the same 5 to 10 points.
Yeah, or like if I kind of feel like if you show up to 3 regionals, you can go to day 1. Like, okay, but you got on at least 2 airplanes. Like, just go day 1 of Worlds.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that helps the people who don't have locals at all, as opposed to like 1 or 2. I 100% agree with that.
I do. That's where I do again think like the day 1 threshold should be a bit lower, or like because it's a fine line of like how many more points
it should be shaped differently.
Where it doesn't just become you can guarantee day 2 just by showing up to 6 regionals. and maybe you do say, maybe you're fine with that. Maybe you're fine if someone shows up to all the events, no matter how well they do, they have a good shot of making day 2 of Worlds automatically. Maybe that is a standard you're fine with. Your mileage will vary there.
Suppose the system was like you get 5 points per win at a regional, and then if you show up, you can probably get 3 wins in 6 rounds or whatever, even if you have a bad start. And then you show up to a bigger regional. That's you can maybe you get famously staying in and getting people TikTok praising you for staying into the tournament to the end of the rounds instead of dropping.
So
that's an idea for next year, I guess.
So because I think we've kind of hit all of the important bells and whistles. Are there any final thoughts on OP before we kind of move to wrapping things up?
Shout out to Stark Dark Games doing some organized play of their own. Go to
if you're in driving range of St. Louis, you can go to play a UVS event this weekend for cash.
Yes.
If you look up Stark Dark on the UGN, you can find that event. It's probably posted in various Discords. I don't know how often people pre-register for that event versus don't, so I really don't know how many people are going to be there. But I will be there. I will probably not be playing a real deck because I built this very silly backup weapons Ned array that's not good, but it makes me smile, so I might run it.
And so if you want to meet...
I liked what that looked like, Tim. You should send me that last second.
And so if you want to meet Universus celebrity and former world champion Tim Keefe in person, go to the Stark Dark event. Kevin, are you going to Stark Dark?
No.
Okay, you don't get to meet
I failed my
champion
logistics
Grover.
Yeah.
Yes. All kidding aside, it would be fantastic if we could get more of these events. It's very unfortunate I can't make it. I really did want to. So I would love to see more of these events for Universus happen, but for those to happen for third parties, they need to see that it's worthwhile. So if you can make it, go to Stark Dark. It'll be a great time. There's cash on the line. It'll be fun. With that in mind, let's go ahead and start wrapping things up. Broberg, you got a channel you want to promote?
Yeah, I'm Build UVS on YouTube and here, and I haven't done anything, so I don't have any immediate pitches, but sometime.
Yeah.
Subscribe and maybe it'll inspire me to do it more.
Satonis on YouTube, CETONIS. I also I haven't posted a video in a minute because I keep waffling about what I want to post, but there's a lot of, there's some evergreen videos on there with some like new player tips. There's a beginners playlist, that kind of thing. So, check that out if you haven't seen that stuff already.
I'm Double Mulligan on Twitch. I haven't done anything lately because it's been.
I mean, I feel like every other week you talk about how you're going to be so much more free in the next N weeks, and then the next N weeks happen, and you're all over the place going to this and that debate, and just
that's good. Yeah, that's because I always feel that's because the problem is I'll free up like a day, like a week, and then 3 things will come at me in 24 hours, and I won't say no to any of them. And then my personal thing, which is my stream, all of a sudden goes, I guess that's lowest on the priority list now. Will, you got a channel?
I mean, just as usual, the VOD channel for ForchXCast is youtube.com/ForchXCast. The new episode I'm going to download once we're off of here, and we'll get it uploaded by Monday or Tuesday next week.
And we're going to send, and with that in mind, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to send you to raid anyone. Does Critical Role still have a Twitch?
They do. They're live right now.
I'm going to send you guys over to Critical Role because I'm about to go watch them.
Dispatch one shot right now.
What's their Twitch name?
Hold on, let me look. Open a new tab. It's literally Critical Role, ROLE.
I should watch.
They disabled raids.
Never.
Fine, we're raiding you over to Tam.
Is he? I don't think he's live anymore.
I don't think so.
We're raiding an offline channel.
But he's offline. Okay, I'm still doing it.
Offline.
Okay. All right, whatever.
It's too late. The rainbow is already hit. Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Have a good one.